All right, we are live. Wait for some people to possibly join us. We'll see who gets on the call or the video here. I'll give it a couple minutes for people to pop in and out, and we will get rocking and rolling. I don't know where you are, where you're coming from, or when you're watching this, but it is a whopping 70 degrees here in Florida. I am freezing, which is why I'm wearing this fake fleece sweater, because I'm freezing today. Typical Floridian southerner, if you will. So we'll just continue to wait for people to jump on, and we'll get this rocking and rolling. So I will go mute for a minute. Give it a couple more seconds, and we'll rock and roll. All right, the typical ADD myself, I'm going to start and get rolling. Today's topic is about getting better financing for your aircraft part repairs. And it doesn't just have to be about aircraft part repairs. It can be almost anything. And you don't need an MBA. You don't need to be a finance guru. You don't need to play with P&Ls and balance sheets and be an accountant to get this. It's really, really simple stuff. And it falls within the procurement umbrella of just negotiating and looking at terms. So that is what we're going to discuss. And why am I here? Well, I am the CEO of Skylink. I've been with Skylink for many years now, and I want to bring this topic to you because I think it is super important. It's had an impact on us, and I know it will have an impact on you. And if you do work with us, we'll take advantage of it because I'm giving it to you for free. Make sure you go back to our Facebook. We bring you, I come to you live every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can always get the recordings if you miss it, but that's okay. So just make sure you like our page to bring to you. So I come to you live, and we do this again every Friday. And it looks like a couple people joined. I appreciate that. Good to have you here. Make some comments if you have any questions. It would be awesome to engage in real time. And head on over to neverforgetyourwings.com. As we talk everything aircraft material related, we bring to you top tips, tricks, and trends that will impact your aircraft maintenance and material life. So make sure you head on over there. So financing is a huge pain. You know, the biggest problem I see within finance from a procurement standpoint is the two teams are incredibly disconnected. I had a problem this week with that very topic. So in order for you to get the best finance, and it depends on your operation, is reduce the spread between your finance team and your purchasing team. And if you're in a large operation in a large company, whether you're an airline, MRO, and Air Force doesn't even count, it becomes a lot more complicated. But you have to build those relationships because in procurement it will have a huge impact on your role and your results. So it becomes really important that you build those relationships. And that's not really even one of the top 5 tips I want to bring to you today. But it becomes really important that you are or have that relationship with your finance team. So let's dig into it. The top trick or strategy to get better financing for your material repairs is super simple: prepay. I know, don't kill me, and it's easier said than done, but prepay your first order. So if you're working with an MRO, they might require you to prepay, but go beyond that. Prepay a few times, because what happens is that establishes your credit line. It shows that you actually have money. There's nothing worse than requesting terms, $50,000 worth of terms, if you only plan to use that MRO for $1,000 and you have trouble paying that $1,000, and you submit a credit reference, and all of your credit references says you pay well beyond net 90 days. So it becomes important that you build your credibility and your payment history, and there's no better way to do that than to prepay. I know that hurts your cash flow, and your finance team might argue with this, but if you prepay your first few orders, you can land better credit. So just imagine, you put yourself in the financial shoes, right? is you prepay those orders and then you request a term increase or credit increase or whatever that might be for you. Is they're more willing to do that because you have prepay. You're showing that credibility and that ability to pay. The next one is, again, not mind-boggling, but pay on time. There are going to be instances is when you're going to be late in payment. Again, it's because that disconnect between finance and purchasing. But if you have net 30 terms, pay 29 days. Why? Because that shows that you are incredibly reliable. And a future tip is you're going to have more negotiating power. So if you want that term increase, if you want to increase your cash flow, you have more bargaining power, right? So pay on time. If you're net 45, pay within the 45 days. Even pay net 50. If you have terms of net 45, pay within the 50. 5 days is not that big of a deal. It's once you start doubling and tripling what your agreed upon amount was is when issues start arising and shipments stop, and it really hurts your supply chain efficiency. So pay on time. And nothing mind-boggling, but it is incredibly important. If you don't know where your terms stand with a vendor, ask. Meet with your finance team. Get a statement. See where you're at. Really know where your account stands, because it will have a huge impact on AOG orders. Just this past week, we had AOG orders, and there was terms doubled. It becomes really hard as an operation if you're doubled your terms without a previous agreed amount. It's hard to release that. So it becomes really important that you know where you stand. 3 is do more business. It's really simple. Is if you put more trust into somebody and they see your account going from 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, what do you think they're going to do? If they're smart, some large distributors is you'll have a credit limit of 50,000 and you hit $50,001 and they cancel you. They don't ship and they cut you off. But it becomes important the more business you do, that your supplier, your trusted material advisor, your MRO sees that, and they start building a relationship, increasing the terms on their own. But the more business you do, the more negotiating power you're going to have to get better financing terms for your repairs. If you do 50,000 and you go to 60,000, the supplier will see that and they might even be more flexible if you're past due on a couple orders because there is that disconnect between finance and purchasing. Is they're going to have that more flexibility in being able to release orders and urgent shipments. So do more business. Is don't always shop for the cheapest price, because that is going to actually hurt you when you need better financing. Cheap prices don't get you great financing. It just doesn't happen. And that leads me to tip number 4 is pay a little more. If, let's say, you have a repair that costs you an average $2,000 at a really solid MRO, and you have net 60 terms, and you have a $50,000 credit line, and everything looks great. But then there's this new MRO that's quoting you a $1,500 average, and but you don't have terms, and you don't have a high credit, and you got to go through all of these obstacles and these hoops to get better terms. Is pay a little more. $500 in the scheme of things to get an additional 60 days of terms of cash flow will make, if you're in finance, you'll be cheering, but it'll make your finance super happy because they have now an additional 60 days of cash flow to play with. So pay a little more. If you're looking for cheap, you're going to oftentimes you're going to prepay cheap. So if you want that cash flow, if you want terms, if you want better financing, there are going to be situations where you're going to pay a little more, and be okay with that. Look at the net. Look at the total picture. Number 5, negotiate the terms. So I can't tell you how often terms aren't negotiated, and it impacts your operation. It's really important that you see, and it's the supplier and the MRO's job as well to bring this to your attention. But if you're going from the $20,000, $30,000, and $40,000 monthly spend, you should be increasing and paying on time. You should see your terms increase. And if there is a situation where you would like, and it would help your operation go from net 30 to net 45, ask, negotiate those details. in procurement, it's not just about buying and reducing your total material cost. It's also about looking at the financing that you're bringing to your operation. So negotiate not only your terms, net 30 to net 45, but also your credit limit. If you're doing more, you're going to need an increase in credit limit. So going from 10, 20 to 30 is request a credit limit of 100. If you're proving that you're paying on time, you're doing more business, you prepaid your first orders, it looks beautiful. So negotiate that. Bring that to your supplier. Why? Because that will help you to procure, especially from an MRO standpoint. It'll reduce the transit times, the lead times, and the roadable cycle times of your repairs. And those are the top 5 easy, super simple tips I have to get better financing for repairs. If you did each one as you naturally progress with a new MRO or even a current trusted repair partner, you're gonna land a ton of better financing. Now, if you're not in finance, this really leans heavy on them. So this is what I suggest. I suggest you take them to lunch. If a lot of things really ride on it, build a relationship with them, and that will really help you to land what you need on the procurement side. And if you're in finance, vice versa. Procurement might always be going for the lowest price, and that might, from a financial standpoint, on the P&L, that might help your bottom line and your operating margin. But then if they're sucking all of the cash away, that becomes a lot more expensive. So just think about that and really try to be able to work together to land better financing. So let's recap. The 5 things is prepay your first few orders. The second is pay on time. The third is to do more business. The fourth is pay a little more. Don't always go for the cheapest repair, and negotiate the details. And that is the simple and quick tips for landing better financing. Again, make sure you go back to neverforgetyourwings.com. We bring these videos and articles and all of these things to your attention. So head on over there, subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to Facebook, go nuts, and I will see you next week. Take care.